Retired Lieutenant Colonel James Carafano joins me now. So, Colonel, does this bring us closer to a peace deal?
Yeah, I hate to say I told you so, but I said we were never going to walk away from Ukraine. That's not in the cards. There's no reason why the United States would gift Ukraine to Russia. It's just stupid. I think this seals the deal. Putin now has two choices. He can either take a deal and get a ceasefire and figure out what he's going to do from there, or he can fight on another year and be in worse shape than he was this year. That's it. That's where we are, period.
But we are also doing something that nobody conceived of before Donald Trump became president, having a business component to this deal that actually helps protect Ukraine.
Well, this is the hallmark of the Trump administration, which is to find the sweet spot that merges national security and economic interests.
Yes.
I mean, this works on the domestic front as well, because now when Trump gives money to Ukraine, it's not welfare. So the critics in the United States that hate foreign aid, that hate throwing money at problems, Trump says, look, I'm not doing that. This is a deal that essentially will pay for itself. And it really kind of opens the space for him to get additional foreign commitments from Congress, and also to open up arms sales to Ukraine. And most importantly, because the U.S. is in Ukraine, it's no longer a free lunch for Russia. And you're going to build up a Ukraine economy that in the end is going to be one of the powerhouses of Europe and the arsenal of European defense.
It could be, but I love the fact that Trump believes in incentives rather than taxpayer handouts. I mean, that's the key. He understands how important incentives in Ukraine and elsewhere. All right, next one, Colonel. This is kind of frightening. Tensions are escalating now between India and Pakistan after a deadly attack in Kashmir that killed more than 24 people. These are two nuclear nations, Colonel. It's kind of a frightening scenario.
Well, you know, I often say I'm not always right, but that's because when I do my analysis, I discount the stupid, ridiculous, really bad options, and then sometimes people take them anyway. There's no good incentive for either country to do this. India is on a roll. Pakistan is in its rearview mirror. India has the capacity to deal with the terrorism threats in its country. It doesn't have to go to war. I understand why India is doing this. It has to show to the Indian people the willingness to defend Indian territory and people. So that's why they take a strong stance. But shooting doesn't really help them. Pakistan's a basket case. They could well fall apart. Their only big partner is China, and we know how risk averse China is at helping its friends. So it's kind of super risky for them. So if this goes into a shooting war, I think it makes no sense. The one thing I will absolutely guarantee, even if they start changing bombs, this will never go nuclear.
Now, why do you say that? Because they do have nukes. Of course, a lot of countries have them and have never used them. But why are you so certain it would not go nuclear?
Because many years ago, we actually showed the Pakistanis and the Indians how to analyze the effects of nuclear attacks and what the effects that they would have on each other country. And I think once they saw that, they realized that nuclear weapons are good for deterring nuclear war, but they're really not good for anything else.
All right. One more, Colonel. Iran is accused of covering up the true death toll in a port explosion. On Tuesday, the death toll was reported to be 70. According to the National Council of Resistance to Iran, the actual death toll is supposed to be closer to 250. Why would Iran want to fudge the numbers on this? And what does this mean about what's happening in Iran?
They have a very shaky control of this regime. You know, we often say that the Iranian people would love to be rid of these people and be pro-Western. I think everybody believes it's absolutely true. And you know who believes it most of all? The people running the country know that the people of Iran don't want them nor in their country. So keeping that regime in power is their number one objective. I actually think, look, I don't think if the Iranian people were going to overthrow this regime, that would have happened. But because of the internal pressure that they have, the external pressure the United States can apply, I think we can put Iran back in a very small box. And, you know, the nuclear issue for Iran is not a technical issue. They can be a nuclear power whenever they want. It's a political decision. And the more pressure that we put on them that it's a bad choice, the more likely is they won't do that. And the more resources we take away from them, the less threatening it can be in the region. And let them be more concerned about keeping control in their own country. That's the box we want them in.
All right, Colonel, thank you very much for all that. Appreciate it.